Hello, and welcome to the Spiritualist Circle of Light. This is our dream class where we discuss the many approaches to dreams. Today, we're going to talk about dreams in some of the cultures, the role they play. For instance, with the African Zulus, they were of the opinion that dreams were brought to them by their ancestors. And this idea, this belief, continues today, as many of us, when we see our loved ones in our dreams, feel that they are bringing messages to us. So, and when they, when their ancestors visited them in dreams, the idea behind that was that they were bringing guidance to them because they felt that those in life's other rooms were able to perceive their lives from a different vantage point. Often, many of us are of the same opinion, particularly if we are spiritualists. But one of the things to keep in mind with spiritualists is that, as Andrew Jackson Davis described in a letter, he had received a question as to the changes that one can expect when they make their transition to one of life's other rooms. The explanation was that it was no different than boarding a ship in London and disembarking in the United States. The only thing that had changed was the geographical location. So, with that in mind, when our loved ones make their transition to one of life's other rooms, their personality remains intact. They are essentially the same person. So if they visited a lot, chances are they will continue to visit. If they were more of a reclusive type, then when they do visit, you may want to pay attention because there's a reason for their coming to you. And like I said, with the African Zulus, their belief was that they brought advice on any number of things. It wasn't just something important. Many of the cultures see the transition from life as just a continuation. Granted, we see it too, but other cultures treat it differently. They they communicate with their loved one in the same fashion as they did before. They would seek them in guidance on mundane stuff, as well as the important things, who to marry, and that sort of thing. So while we seek to interpret our own dreams, which is part of the role of this class, uh, they did not interpret their dreams. They felt they were not qualified. So what they did was they experienced an interesting dream or a disturbing dream. They sought out a diviner or a shaman, and they were the interpreters. The interesting thing about these with shaman, the early history of shaman is that one of the qualifications was some type of mental ailment. Those who experienced bipolar disorder or even schizophrenia or some other form of delusion or psychosis, they were looked upon as being touched by the gods. And this was their qualification as a shaman. Keep in mind the definition of shaman is one who, let me see if I recall, one who communicates or speaks with those who are unseen. They don't want to use the term spirit because spirit is not the same as many of us see it today. So, with this in mind, the belief was that the diviner or the shaman was possessed by the particular god or spirit or element. I should say spirit, element, um, essence. Uh, that was their beliefs. And interestingly, mostly the diviners of this particular culture was women. And not only that, but those who were male were often seen as androgynous or transsexual or, uh, yeah, we'll leave it at that. So now in Morocco, it's a little different because they believed dreams to be prophetic. And because of this, they developed a dictionary, probably the same as the dream dictionaries available to us today. The one I was taught with was by Gustav Miller, and it was 10,000 Dreams Interpreted, which is a pretty good book to use. We don't recommend using dream dictionaries, but if you do decide to use a dream dictionary, only use one. So, anyway, they also believe that the bad dreams or nightmares, which we discussed in our last encounter, was due to immoral behavior. Now, this smacks quite a bit of religious rhetoric, but this was their belief and a way warding them off. Now, keep in mind, you've got the whole idea of disembodied entities possessing them or coming from them and being mischievous. So, as a means of warding them off, they changed their behavior. They began saying prayers. They slept in different positions. We'll touch on that a little more in another session. And there's the biggie: they abstained from sexual activity. Now, this is just one culture, and the Haitians, some of the peasants believe that the encounters in dreams were from the gods or the divine. And during these visitations, the dreamer was possessed by the one who was bringing the message. This is similar to some of the Greek myths. I believe it was Apollo, one of the healing gods. They would bring a person who was ill into the temple, and he would sleep in the temple. They would sleep there, and Apollo would possess them as a means of healing them. So this belief has been around for a while. So, and with the Haitians, and probably with the Greeks, with Apollo and that, this was looked upon as some form of communion, and communion being a close, intimate communication. And when they experienced disturbing dreams, they believed they were calls for sacrifice, a call for feasts, or some form of ritual. And some of these beliefs still exist in our mainstream religions, though they are couched differently. And since we touched on a little bit about interpreting dreams, we are going to look at some of the definitions well, definitions is the wrong thing. We're going to look at a way of interpreting dreams that is very simple. Uh, when I interpret dreams, I rely quite a bit on cliches. And, cliches are word pictures that express 1,000 words. They're like a picture, that cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, so is a cliche. And some of these are, they're very useful when it comes to interpreting dreams. Now, also keep in mind that in our earlier classes, we talked about the role of emotions. So be mindful of the emotion that you experienced while you were dreaming. So this is a PowerPoint presentation. All right, so interpreting our dreams. Cliches and common sense are your best friends, and they really are, because there are a variety of cliches that will fit for any given dream, any given image. So we're going to begin with houses. A lot of us encounter them, and as you can see, houses are typically about ourselves or the person we recognize. The condition of the house also tells a little bit about what's happening with the person. If you are having a dream and you find yourself in your mother's house, well, then that will tell you that the dream has something to do with your mother. Your mother is there. She is the one bringing the message, if that is your belief. So, and when you are in your own home, now keep in mind that these images of houses, buildings, and anything else that you see in the dreams may not necessarily reflect what's in the waking world. You are now in the dream world, and a lot of things tend to be on an idealized level. So, what might this tell you about a person? Well, for one, it's a log cabin. So this tells us that this person values history. They may like antiques, or it could be belong to someone they knew or identified with that. The fact that it's in the woods would also indicate that this person liked their privacy, perhaps even isolation. In this instance, it's well kept. So this tells us that this person is someone who was mindful of their appearance. So now when we move into the house, individual rooms have their own little messages associated with them. If anybody is familiar with Edgar Cayce, this was something I learned from reviewing one of his books. So the basements. Their basements are exactly that. They are the base. They are what everything is built upon, and they will typically mean the same thing, which is going to be basic emotions, basic needs, a foundation, something to build upon, base emotions, anger, greed, very simple emotions. Love is very complex, so that will not be there, but joy, excitement. Basic needs can be industry, food, shelter, survival. So when we're looking at basements, what might this one tell us? Well, it's in a state of disarray. So this could tell us that this person is impulsive. They tend to react without thinking things through. It can also tell us that they're not very conscientious of their well-being. Living rooms. These are common areas. These are the rooms. This is one of the rooms that we will tend to find ourselves in when we're dreaming of houses. Living rooms are common areas. And what is it that we do in living rooms? Well, we tend to entertain. That's what's happening in the image here. They're talking. They're entertaining each other. There's nothing deep going on here. It's all on the surface. Entertainment tends to be on the surface. So when we're looking at this, what might this be telling us? Water is typically always has to do with emotions. So this tells us that this person may not have very many associations, may not have very many friends. They tend to be tumultuous. They might even lean on the violent side, but they're not in control of their emotions, and everybody knows it. They may be a thrill seeker, but notice how the rest of the room is. It's very neat. So this may also imply that the person may swing from one mood to another very easily. Could be a moody person. There's a lot you can tell about some of this stuff. Kitchens. Kitchens serve two roles. We prepare our food in them, and sometimes we eat in them as well. I know in my kitchen, I have a little counter space set up where two people can share a meal. So what would they mean? Well, before I get into that, but with kitchens, the way you can tell one from the other, if it's a time of preparation or if it's the time of nourishment, is what's happening in there. If you are consuming food, if you're eating food in a kitchen, then it's going to have something to do with the physical plane, because this is not the place where we typically would eat food. Now, I know with a lot of the lifestyles that a lot of people eat right there at their kitchens or on the countertop, or they've got a little table set up in the kitchen. And, depending on how the room is set up, if you're in an apartment, the dining area tends to be folded in with the kitchen, but there's still two separate areas. You leave the area where you prepare food and you go to an area for consuming food. So it's typically going to deal with the physical plane. So what might this tell you? Now, this is a kitchen, and notice how everything is put away. This would imply that this person may be detail oriented. And because they're detail oriented, they might border on OCD. May not necessarily be in the kitchen, but there's some aspect in their life where they're very, very conscientious. And, just to be clear, being OCD is not a sign of neurosis unless it interferes with your life. Dining rooms. This is where food is typically consumed. Not only that, but drink as well. So while the dining room is where we take in nourishment, this will be considered spiritual food, as we term it, or food for the soul. This is where the soul is nurtured. What do we do at gatherings? What is going on in this image here? People are communicating, they're sharing stories, they're talking about life's event, they are conversing. This is communion. This is communion. When we look back at the scene described with Jesus and all of his disciples, and they were taking communion, they were sharing. They were sharing in his life. They were sharing in his soul, his essence. It was a time of communion, a time of sharing. So, dining rooms do not have to be indoors. Wherever we happen to be at can be a dining area. So what might this be telling us? It can tell us that this person is private. They only share information with those they feel comfortable with. This could also be telling us, note the sun could be setting. If the sun is setting, this could also indicate that something in their life, a pattern in their life, is coming to a close. A lot of things going on with this. And here I am talking about cliches. And I don't believe I've mentioned one of them. So let's get back to cliches. Bathrooms are for one purpose, cleansing, and that is it. Think of washing your hands of a situation, you're cleansing it. Tidying up a situation is going to be the same thing. Cleaning things up, clean yourself up. You know, these are cliches here. So what about this one here? We've got a toilet there. Cleaning it up. This is always a good one in class, because what's this saying? Well, the one is either crap or get off the pot. Another one is clean your crap up, or it's down the toilet. In any of those cases, it's no longer got to do with you. It's gone. Bedrooms. Bedrooms have a couple meanings. The first thing is they represent security. Typically, when you're dreaming of a bedroom or being in a bedroom or in someone's bedroom, it's always going to deal with security. The cliche here, no, I can't think of one for the moment, but we feel safe and secure in our bedrooms. They are also a place of intimacy. And we're not necessarily talking about sexual activity, but sexual activity tends to represent a level of intimacy, a level of trust, which comes back to security. So behind closed doors, this is where it comes from. This is the cliche here. In bed together, intimately entangled. Politics make strange bedfellows. Again, connections here, a level of trust, intimacy. So what might this one be saying? Well, what's the cliche? Somebody's bringing their work home. Computer does not belong in a bedroom. Now keep in mind, these are dreams. This is what you would see in a dream. Doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't have this in your bedroom, but when you're dreaming of this, these are the archetypes. These are the symbols. Don't take your work home with you. Don't take your work to bed with you. You know, too tight, too deep of a connection. And then we have attics. Attics are the highest point in the house. They can suggest security. They can represent a state of mind. The old Aerosmith tune, Toys in the Attic. This is what they're talking about. Toys in the attic. It's a reference to where somebody is not quite right. So what might this one say? Well, we've got, I'd love to have used one with bats in the belfry, but couldn't find that. So what is it we have with clothes in the attic, antiques in the attic, store it in the attic. Don't forget, when you store things in the attic, you put them there so they will be safe. Where do you put memories? You put memories in the attic. Remember when. These are the types of things. So with this, we've got dresses here and clothing. This could be tell us about somebody who is living in the past. So cliches are very useful. They can help you cut through a lot of definitions there. They're based on common sense. A cliche has has 1,000 words to it, 1,000 meanings, 1,000 cliches for one thing. For instance, if you dream of a dog, what comes to mind? What's the cliche? A dog is man's best friend. Dogs are companions. So, you can draw from that. We'll look at some more as we slowly progress. So, just as a recap, different cultures view dreams differently. Ours is one that either dismisses them or they praise them. And what I mean by praising them, they put them on a pedestal. So dreams can be easily interpreted. They can be guideposts. They can be dreams, just that. In our earlier classes, we discovered that dreams are powered by emotions. So we're going to re-experience those emotions, and they can bring us messages. And we're going to explore some of that in our future classes on how some authors use dreams as a means of awakening or as a means of discovery. I hope you found this of value. If you have, please give generously. We appreciate your seeds. You can find more information at our website. The website is brdnsky.com. Phonetically, Bird and Sky. That is the home of the Spiritualist Circle of Light. We have plenty of articles there. We have links to videos. We have guided meditations. There's a lot of stuff going on there. We also have a calendar of events. The Spiritualist Circle of Light holds a healing and message service on Saturday evenings at 7 Eastern Time. You can also find dates and such for events for the First Spiritual Church of Prayer I serve there as well. For those of you local to South Bend, Indiana, we have an afternoon service. Our morning service is through Zoom, the same as the Spiritualist Circle of Light. Their service is through Zoom. All the details are at the website. I thank you very much for allowing me to share with you. And again, I hope you found this beneficial. Please visit our website. We have other videos available for you. You can find them at the Bird and Sky channel on YouTube. You can also find them at the Spiritualist Circle of Light Facebook page. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.